one of our favorite analysts, commentators, and just generally a person that everybody wants to listen to, has joined us today, and that is Professor JJ Tabani. We're so excited to speak to him. Before we kick off, I want to just thank our sponsors, Pace Car Rental. Support them, they support us. Don't be a mug, haha. Go and rent your next car from Pace Car Rental and get a discount when you use the code SONA. Don't confuse it with other channels that are also got codes at Pace Car Rental. Use ours, SONA, and you can get a discount on your car hire. Right. I'm sure you've subscribed. We'll deal with that later. But a lot has happened in South Africa over the last couple of months. Looking back at the year, looking forward, judging everything we need. We wanted to get the best person to do that, and who better than Professor JJ Tabani. JJ, welcome to the State of the Nation. It's been too long.
Mike, thank you so much for inviting me. Really appreciate it. And also, just to say thank you for playing my special podcast a few weeks ago with my conversation with Tate Lehotla. You welcome him nicely into the podcast space, so I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, he's a national treasure, and he needs to be listened to a lot more, because he backs up everything with a lot of really well thought out statistics. JJ, let's jump into where we are here as we round out the year.
Yeah.
One of the big talking points, successes and failures at the same time, one not too sure how to assess it, the G20, which was held in South Africa. What should have been the crowning glory, I suppose, of Cyril Ramaphosa's presidency got overshadowed by the spat with the US. The US doesn't seem to like us much. What did you make of the whole G20 situation?
Look, I mean, first of all, I think South Africa, in a sense, boxed above its weight in just hosting the G20. Remember, when the G20 started, they were just a mere guest. Right? In fact, a lot of people were surprised that South Africa was even invited to those meetings. Right? And to move from there to be the actual host and be responsible for pulling a global conversation. This is really what it is. Is truly something that we need to comment. I know there aren't too many things that please us when it comes to our government these days, but on this one they did very, very well. And I'm not even yet talking about the logistics. I'm talking about pulling together well leaders to talk about uncomfortable issues of solidarity, issues of equality, etc. Those things are not obvious. They may be obvious here because maybe there's a lot of conversations that we are having given our history. But in other places, people say, what the hell? In fact, the US said, don't even use that kind of thematics to talk G20. They even ridicule the G20 to say it's too inclusive. They even call it the G100. They're saying, just stop it. Let's go back to the exclusivity we can afford, right? So overall, well done to South Africa and pulling that national conversation together, resulting in a declaration that often is adopted at the end of a summit. In this case, or adopted at the beginning of the summit, which means there was a lot of consensus building that went into it throughout the year. Consensus is not something that just happens automatically. Or suddenly at the summit of world leaders. By the time you get the heads of state land here, you could well say the work is being done. So that's the first part. The second part is logistics. I'm surprised that a lot of people made a big deal of the fact that South Africa was hosting so well and what have you. Who hosted the World Cup, Rugby World Cup in 1995?
Yeah.
Right? Who hosted the World Summit in 2000? Who hosted the World Cup in 2010? We have been consistent in the fact that when asked to do so, we can rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Right. The only problem is that where things, affect our local citizens, such as, and I wrote a piece in the Times. You can go and have a look at it. I used human settlement as an example. There's over 4,000, right, squatter camps. I want to put it bluntly so you understand. If I say informal settlements, you polish it.
Sounds like a
You've
choice.
got squatter camps.
Yeah.
People are squatting. They don't have proper human settlements. No streets, no water, no lights. If anything, risk of fires and floods. right? Where is the master plan to deal with that, right? When we are given the World Cup of 2010 of soccer to host, half of the stadiums that you are seeing now didn't exist. In fact, businesses had to collude to move fast enough to get those stadiums, some of whom have become white elephants, just by the way, right? To build them. And the Competition Commission, who otherwise would have slapped them with big fines, took a step back and didn't do that. Why? Because of the national interests that assumably were going to come South Africa's way if we hosted such a global spectacle, right? So where is the master plan to get people out of squatter camps? Where is it? And I just find that, and that's, I'm not going to talk about water infrastructure in Joburg. You know what has happened. It's because there was neglect over years and never a serious master plan that says, let's fix this. The same way that, we saw potholes being fixed quickly. We saw, wedges being cut quickly to make sure that as the heads of states, motorcades pass by, they don't see squalor, but they see something they can recognize, which is a first world.
Yeah. I've been quite critical of G20, and in a way you encapsulate the point that I was making, saying that I don't know if we have done any favors by being included in the G20 while you've got 4,000 squatter camps. Do you understand what I mean? I'm saying that it gives us veneer of a country that's succeeding when the country is failing at its most basic task.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you're going to see the inevitable opportunity grabbed by the president to say, what a success, well done, South Africa. It was an event with a limited audience. It was quite easy to host as far as events go. It's nothing like holding a World Cup or anything like that where you've got thousands and thousands of people coming. And for us to live in that exalted company while the squatter camps grow, to me is wrong, and in many ways stops us from making the real progress, which is to hold government to account.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I wouldn't put it that extreme. I think, right, that there is a positivity. I'm looking for a correct word, but there is sense, right, in making sure that the whole world takes notice of particularly the plight of the poor, right? So we can't say, or just leave the first world to do as they please, to do as they please where climate change is concerned, to do as they please where world trade, engagements are concerned, etc. Because all those things are going to come back to bite us, right? So if the West and the North, in this case, right, don't do anything about climate change, who suffers? Look at the floods in KZN. Look at the floods that happened in the Eastern Cape, where hundreds of people died. So we can't then be ignorant of that part, right? So, but I agree with you that you got to. For me, it's a balance to say don't be so ignorant and close yourself in a cocoon, right? And not be able to say, well, this declaration says, let's make sure that we don't have people dying of inevitable stuff, right? So I'm just saying that the G20 is not totally useless. Those conversations are not totally useless. We should need to transform the United Nations so that they can come up. I mean, the COVID was a typical example of why it's necessary, right, not to be an island, right? Because that's when we were able to say, well, the World Health Organization must come on board. We need to be able to get vaccines and be able to collaborate on saving the world together. So if we took your approach, maybe 20 years ago when we needed to join the World Health Organization and so on, maybe COVID would have been worse for us. Right? That's all I'm saying. I don't want to throw the baby. What do you say?
Baby with the
bathwater to say to hell with multilateralism because things are bad at home. Let's just put our heads in the sand and just deal with what is in front of us as a domestic issue. Regional, international solidarity is also important.
Yeah, I mean, the point that I'm making is that what's it going to take for our politicians to understand that it's achievement that matters at the end of the day? You can get invited to these things, but if you think that the rest of the world doesn't know what's under your carpet, right? They also have the internet. They also know about the 4,000 squatter camps.
Yeah,
they see the cut grass. They know that the road is okay, this road, but they also know that 1 block away there's potholes. They're not naive. We're only fooling ourselves if we think we fooled them when they came here with our one plane flying up and down, to make it look like we've got an air force. You understand what I mean? I'm just saying that I think that if there's one thing...
Do you think, okay, let me ask you this differently. Do you think that by hosting so successfully, not just this, but other international events, right, it's an attempt of the government to fool the world into believing that we're successful? Or is it because they realize that in order to succeed at home, right, we also need to be aware of what's happening around us, whether be it in the region where we don't allow a situation where things are so bad that people migrate here with our limited resources. Well, I'm just giving migration as one example, right? Do you really think that they sit there and say, let's fool the world? Or is it simply because maybe the priorities are not so great?
I think that it's the same. I'll use this analogy. I think it's the same thing that when the Metro Police think that they're doing policing by putting up a roadblock. Yeah. Yes, they're police. Yes, they're going to catch some people that haven't paid their fines.
Yeah.
But they haven't done policing. They're waiting. What they're doing is they're fishing with a net, not fishing with a rod, right, when they do a roadblock. By saying that if we put this big show of force at William Nicol every midnight on Saturday, Friday night and Saturday night, everyone's going to think we're policing. Instead, they're not at the traffic light when it really matters to direct traffic when it's not working. They're not stopping the taxi from driving on the pavement.
Yeah.
So there's this feeling that they think that we all think that they're doing policing, but we all know that they're not. They're doing a roadblock, and there's a difference between a roadblock and policing. Much like I think there's a difference between event management or running an event, which is important but limited compared to being a successful country.
Yeah.
Because you can't hide the numbers. 0 growth, 50% unemployment, 4,000 squatter camps. These are numbers you can't lie about.
Yeah.
And the event, sometimes, it's like, it horrified me when I heard this sort of analogy of, you clean your house when the visitors are coming. Yeah, well, what are you doing when the visitors aren't coming? Are you going to live in filth? You know what I mean? Which is the truth. And I can't believe...
But do you agree with me that it's a balance that you need? In other words, you can't argue that South Africa must be an island not bother what's happening in Eswatini, not bother what's happening in Zimbabwe, not worry about what's happening in Botswana.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where the SADC comes in. Yeah. Well, apparently, we are now chair of SADC because the person who was chair is involved in the coup d'etat, right? So you could say, but it's a waste of money to host those meetings and what? Let's direct that to build clinics. Is that the dichotomous approach that we should be taking, or we should be saying, let's know where our priorities lie, but let's not say, be an island.
No, I'm not for 1 minute thinking the island is the good way to go, but I'm just saying that doesn't give us the license to what they're doing. There is that old analogy when you get into the plane and they're giving you the briefing before you take off.
Yes.
And they say, if you've got young children and the thing pops out of the roof, put your own mask on first before you help
the others. Yeah.
Right. And I'm saying that South Africa is the adult in the SADC relationship.
Yeah.
Put your own mask on, fix your own country, and then we'll be able to help the rest of the region a lot better than by saying, oh, no, we're here as, I'm the world's president as Cyril has behaved over the last year.
Yeah.
And it's all fine because we got the G20. No, it's not all fine. It's very bad.
So if you're in charge, what would you do about the G20? You would say, let's not bother.
I'd say bother, but understand where we are and what we're doing and try and strive to do better. We seem to have lost the the ambition
Yeah.
to actually earn our place in the G20. We're the 41st biggest economy, and Egypt's ahead of us, and Nigeria are one spot behind us. I'm saying that in South Africa, it's a bit like when you go to a football match and people start cheering when somebody dribbles somebody else. But they don't put the dribbling on the scoreboard. They put the goals on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
I'm saying we need to score goals, not dribble. And G20 is dribbling. It's important, very important. It's part of the game that sets you up. But, we need to get back into the case where we actually take achievements, global achievements, as being very important.
Yeah, I agree. I hear what you're saying. That's why I argued in my piece that G20 is meaningless for Joe Soul, quite frankly, right? But at the same time, I'm not arguing that, therefore, disconnect from the world.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know, because right now the world has become a village. In other words, you can podcast in London if you want. Right? You can. So our youngsters, who you have said is 50% unemployment, don't have to be confined to finding jobs in South Africa.
Yeah.
They can find jobs in the BRICS. Right? And where does the BRICS come from? It comes from a multilateralism of some kind. So all I'm saying is that I'm just calling for a balance, that you say, yes, prioritize your local story, right? And priorities and your people, instead of prioritizing globe-trotting, right? But at the same time, and be aware, right, that we don't live in an island. We live with China here, we live with Russia, we live with Israel, and that's why South Africa will wax lyrical about the fact that, yes, they've skipped all the 50 countries that are in trouble here and went to go and take Israel to court about something that's happening miles away.
Yeah. Well, we can say what we like about MK. They're trying to help unemployment by sending guest workers to the Donbass.
What a crazy story. I mean, that must be the craziest 2025 story, man.
It is an absolutely mad story. But before we get there, let's talk about the commission.
The commissions,
because the commissions have been dominating the latter part of the year, and we've had the two running in parallel, and they're trying to run as fast as possible. What do you make of what has come out?
All right. So I was thinking about it, on my way here, doing my next column, and thinking, and I titled it, "The Crooks Within." That's really what this commission is telling us. So you and I are probably afraid to walk at night and whatever, but the part of us say, at least there are police. If you see a little blue light, you sort of, feel slightly better that at least somebody is looking out for me while I'm asleep, right? But here, these commissions are saying the same people on whose safety and security you are trying to put your life in, there are crooks within that system. And how did this happen? The actual crooks, the criminal syndicates, thought, what is the best way for us to carry on doing what we are doing? Let's own the police. Let's put the police in our pockets. I mean, the stories that are coming out of Metropolis, they should close that Metropolis of Ekurhuleni. It's unfathomable what is happening there, and you call that some kind of a police force, right? So we've got crooks within our system. But what's worse is that if you look at a couple of years ago, there was a big story about how the criminal, what was it called, the crime intelligence has been usurped, right? The Mudlulis of this world who were entertaining themselves, by listening to phone calls of people or by buying their girlfriends' cars using the slush funds. It was just, it sounded like a big mess. But actually, if you think about it carefully, the crooks, that if we own that, it means that will be difficult to detect. And then those who slip through the cracks and are detected anyway have another thing, another ace up their sleeves, an ineffective National Prosecuting Authority that focuses on the minions. They don't focus on the kingpins. They don't focus on the big fish, whether it be the big fish in the private sector or big fish in the private sector. No, they want the minions. They want the guy who was pickpocketing people at the rank, not the person who pays them to do that on a daily, right? So you got, on the one hand, crooks within who are being owned by criminals. And then we've got the ineffective National Prosecuting Authority that can show us just one orange overall, not one. And I'm talking about serious stuff here. I'm talking about people who have stolen billions, people who aided state capture, etc. Those people are laughing. Right? If anything, some of them were reappointed into cabinet. Some of them were reappointed into the top 7 of the ANC. You know, Mukonyane, who's a deputy general secretary,
Mama Aston,
can't be bothered. You think she's bothered? She's not bothered at all. Gwede Mantashe, who's the chair of the ANC, is mentioned in the state capture, can't be bothered. In fact, he goes to court to lie. That's why that review didn't happen. He lies and says, no, I was general secretary, but I was so powerless. This is, if you are general secretary of the ANC, you are probably, next to the president, you are the most powerful person. Right? So please give me another argument of why we shouldn't point a finger at you. Maybe there's another reason why, they got it wrong by saying, oh, well, you got security around your house for which you have not paid, etc. But don't say to me your reason is because these people are crazy. I was not a government minister, so I had nothing to do with tenders. Which idiot must believe that? They can tell that to people who are not involved in politics, in student politics. And we know that the party is the powerhouse, is the center. And that's part of the problem. The people are not the center. The party is the center. And who's the head of the party? Who's the head of the what is called the deployment committee? Right? So he wants us to believe that. Mukonyane wants us to believe there's no problem. She's one day will wake up and go and take Zondo on review. And so it goes. We have 100 names almost mentioned in the state camp. Not one of them has been disciplined by the party. I would understand if they say, oh no, but we are not prosecutors, so we really can't prosecute. But who's stopping the party and is so-called integrity committee to discipline those people, or their disciplinary committee? We have a situation here where everything is being aided by what one can call, a conspiracy of silence, particularly around issues of corruption. So that's my summary of the commissions. They're showing us what we have known all along, that within the police force, within the criminal justice system, etc., there are people who are aiding and abetting crime instead of doing the opposite to keep South Africa safe. And so, no surprises if you look at the crime stats.
Yeah,
they are consistently high. I mean, if you don't tell me, the murder went down by 1%, who are you fooling? When 60 people die every day as we are sitting here.
Yeah, it's a terrible figure that I've made a lot of noise about, the fact that as many South Africans have died since the Gaza attack by the Israeli Defense Force, as many South Africans has died as Gazans, and as many South Africans has died as Ukrainians since Russia.
No, we're in a war zone.
It's crazy.
We're in a war zone. If anybody doubts that, then they are living in cuckoo land.
Yeah.
We're in a war zone because women just can't walk along this street without worrying that they could be dead.
Yeah. Well, the most disgusting figure is 10,000 women and children get killed every year. Women and children. But you talk about the hierarchy and the conspiracy of silence. You're even seeing it, to me, in the craziest way in the commission. If you think about it, there's been we've heard about the big 5 criminal syndicates, but then there seem to be 3 names that come up.
Yeah.
And if you look at the different treatment of those 3 criminals, we're not talking about politicians, we're talking about criminals. You've got Kat Matlala, who's had to face the commission.
Yeah.
You got Katiso Malefe got given bail.
Yeah.
And Hangwani Maumela, he hasn't even been arrested or called to anything. Yeah. So in each case, there've been like a descending level of protection that they've got.
Yeah, but here's the biggest problem. There are people who are talking on social media, and you shouldn't take that for lightly, who see these people as some kind of heroes. Right? The way Matlala has been treated and people talking about it and so on, you would not think we're in a war zone where crime is concerned, where this person tells us in our faces that the people that we think are police minister and what are nothing but a bunch of crooks. Okay, whether you're talking about the current minister or the previous two, one of whom must rest in peace. That was mentioned there. In fact, the Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi said this is the worst political interference that he has ever experienced in his career under Nathi Mthethwa.
Yeah.
Right, and we can go back. I'm not sure who was there before, and then you had the commissioners joining the same line. You had the commissioner Silebi, who was owned by the. So it's almost like a rework or
it's almost like it never really ended, to be honest.
Exactly.
Because I mean,
it's like a deja vu.
Yeah.
To say, here we are again. In this case, we're talking about the minister who, by the way, is absolutely shameless. You should listen to him in the commission, right? And he's trying to justify why, out of many things that you could have done, he goes to something that's working. You have a task team that actually is working with enough dockets to arrest people, and he goes and interfere with that. When all the other statistics continue to persist, he's not telling us what is he going to do about, gender-based violence. What is he going to do about, what is it? TICs, cash in transit.
Yeah.
Those are the things you should be worried about and come up with something creative he's going to do. No, he goes to this thing that's working, right? Because his friends are being targeted. He pulls the plug on it, and now he's battling to explain himself.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, those commissioners, even some of the MPs, are not buying his story.
Yeah.
That, oh, no, there was no IMC, I didn't have to account to anybody. Oh, by the way, and I just told the president 2 months afterwards. So you're talking here about a fellow who should have been fired instantly, right? Why was he not fired? Because maybe he knows more than he should. Why are we spending millions on something that the president should have simply made a decision to say, sorry, guy, right? You are a minister of police and there are all these allegations. Won't you just resign for now? We'll make you an ambassador to Burkina Faso or something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, even that. It's like, don't go to Burkina Faso. Let's put him on.
Just keep him somewhere where he won't come back. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying
just put him in the dungeon.
Just be so
like if you're an ambassador of a war-torn place.
Yeah, but it is concerning, and there've been variable performances in the parliamentary committee. I thought some of them have been interesting. Some of them, but the problem with the parliamentary committee, as I've seen, has been heavily motivated by the politics of the person, as one would expect.
Yeah, no, that's what you'll expect. Remember, Parliament. First of all, those people are not experts. They're not legal experts. They are representatives of their people. They are, in quotes, their constituencies, right? So you may expect them to be clever as the Madlanga. That would be unfair. They are MPs, right? And they have a responsibility to, in a sense, lord over the executive. I don't know whether they do that effectively.
Yeah.
Because, like you're saying, they tend to either be sweetheart to their own people. So if he's a minister of the DA on the podium, then DA people are not going to tear them to pieces and try to hold them accountable, because they would say, well, we'll do that in the back, in a party caucus, right? So now you say to these people, oh, please ask these people questions. They will ask questions that drive their political agenda. It's not something that should surprise us.
Yeah.
Right? It's sad because they're supposed to be members of parliament, not members of the ANC, but members of parliament who took an oath. They didn't take an oath of the ANC. They took an oath, right, of parliament as members of parliament. That's why when in an ideal situation, something called, I don't know whether you even know of it, Mike, there's something called a constituency office. Right? So if you are an MP, you are given an office, a parliamentary office, right? Where any member of the public, regardless of their political affiliation, can come to you and say, Mike MP, we've not had water in this street for the last 20 months. Please help. You can't say to them, oh, are you a member of the EFF? It's irrelevant. But what has happened over the years? MPs have taken that money and have funded their political parties. like literally,
Mm.
right? So instead of opening a proper parliamentary office, they take that money and give it to the local branch there to open a party. Or if they eventually open that constituency office, you get in there and it will be unmistakable that this person is a member of the EFF or ANC. So they take that office and, for lack of a better word, bastardize it. Take money of the taxpayer that's meant to be at service to the people in terms through that constituency office and use it for party political ends, right? And as a result, people in that community suffer because maybe in that community, the only MP, who has a constituency office is from a party that you don't belong to. Why am I making a long story? I'm just saying that sometimes our leaders, right, tend to forget, right, the ethos of service. That once you are elected through your party or as an independent in local government, whatever, you cease, right, to wave a flag of party politics, but you need to wave the flag of the country. And I hope one day that will come to pass. I mean, I had a big debate with Moelezi Mbeki about this, to say we need to move towards constituency and so on. But I'm not sure whether, in fact, the country wants that. Remember, we had 11 independents, right? Who none of them made it to parliament. And by the way, if you can't make it to parliament, it means you couldn't garner 50,000 votes. You couldn't gather, not one of them garnered 50,000 out of the pool of, I don't know what I think just 27 or 28 million people who were meant to vote. So I'm not sure. I'm a bit stuck about what really the people want, and whether the issue of the people shall govern will ever come to pass.
The one political change that we've had has been the loss of the outright majority that the ANC enjoyed for 30 years.
Yes.
And the formation of the so-called Government of National Unity.
Yeah.
And the jury's been out from the very start as to whether this thing is working in one way or another. We discussed it quite soon after it was formulated. It was way too early to tell one way or another. The early days looked like it was going to break at any moment. It now seems to be that marriage where they're all living in separate rooms.
Yeah.
What's your reading of the GNU as it sits at the moment?
Yeah.
Is it even a thing anymore?
Yeah, no, it's there. It's going to survive. And I've always said to people, even when I was opposed to it right at the beginning, because, by the way, even before the elections, I argued that you need a government of national unity, but for a completely different reason. Because I was thinking the country is at a crossroads. It's in a crisis, right? And what's going to help you with that crisis, for me, at that point, was not a party political solution. It was going to be our ability to see beyond the party politics and say, somebody like Floyd Chivambu in the EFF at that point seems to be a sharp economist. Maybe we need that kind of person at Treasury, right? Who, by the way, probably if they had to argue with Kodongwana, they would have a good argument, right? It won't be like the blind leading the blind. They could probably understand each other as economists, right? You'll go into the DA and say, maybe there's a good person. Maybe Helen Zille should do something with his his activism, which she seems not to want to give up. Or not, she doesn't seem to want to retire. Maybe you put her there as a minister or something, right? And so it goes. You go to the ANC and say, we've got a brilliant person like a David Masondo. Give him a serious job as Minister of Trade and Industry or whatever. And so it goes. So the idea was to say you need a government of national unity that can recognize talent wherever it is in the country so that we can get out of the rut. Well, that didn't happen. Then there's a new GNU that actually was formed along political and ideological lines. Right? The ANC could not stand MK or EFF, so they decided, oh no, rather let's go right. and go and deal with the DA, even when the DA has told them in their face that we don't like any of your policies. We don't like the NHI, we don't like your Bella Act, we like nothing that's on the table. But they still thought that's better than our ideological, if you like, duplicates. Because really that's what EFF and MK are, just a chip of the old block.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So what has happened now? Exactly what some of us predicted. An inertia, what you can call a 5-year inertia. Right? Show me one policy where the GNU has agreed. You'll battle to find it, because they, after a year and a half of being married, right? They still they can't tell us what they are gonna do with the economy. They can't tell us what they are gonna do with land. They can't tell us what they are gonna do with health. All of those things, they are deadlocked of whatever you may think of whether whether DA is right to ANC, doesn't matter. The issue is that they are together in government, and yet they are yet to agree. That's interesting, because the deputy president was saying that what is called the clearinghouse is now in a new gear now. There's a clearinghouse has been. It took them more than a year and a half to agree on how they are going to disagree. It's very interesting. I mean, but at least there's a progress of some sort.
Yes.
That at least they've now agreed on how they are going to disagree going forward.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be watching in 2026, whether or not the existence of the clearinghouse will improve what I can call a policy discord. Will it improve that? Maybe they'll suddenly agree on what they're going to do with land together. They'll suddenly agree that the NHI is a good or a bad thing, right? And that's really going to be the test for that clearinghouse. Can it resolve this intractable policy or ideological difference?
Because at the moment it looks like the ultimate winner is Hendrik Verwoerd and his separate development, because everybody seems to be operating in completely different worlds almost.
Look, Mbeki Mbeki emphasized the fact that the people rejected the ruling party. Right? If you used to be at 62% and you are suddenly at 40%, that's a rejection. Right? But my view is that the people did not reject them enough, because they will still be able to maneuver with the 40% as the biggest bloc and get 75% of cabinet.
Yeah.
Right? So they lost the election, but they won the negotiations.
Yeah, that might come back to bite them, the way I've sort of made this point almost from the beginning, that sometimes you've got to be careful. If I do you in a deal, that I'm very clever for until that backfires. And it seems to have backfired, because many of those ministries that they've held onto have created problems for them. When you're looking at things like the Madlanga Commission, they held on to policing.
Yeah.
And okay, now you must own this problem, because there is no other party involved. It's you, brother. It's completely you. They've owned some of these problems. There has been one little ray of light, as I see it, for the GNU, and that was the spat over the budget, which seems to have led to exactly what we would have hoped, which is inputs from various people. And the medium-term budget statement was infinitely more reasonable and better handled than the budget.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, if you're a government, right, that can agree on the budget. What is the budget? Budget is an enabler for you to do whatever else you want to do. Whether you are going to build more clinics, more roads, more schools. You can agree on that as a government. Why are you still a government? So for me, you are looking at the silver lining of a bad situation, right? That the situation was so bad that these people who are in government together couldn't talk amongst themselves without one of them going to court and making a noise, right? To agree on the most basic thing. So the question is, if you are a business and you couldn't agree on a budget of how you're going to spend money, how you're going to make money, why do you exist? So I hear what you are saying. The silver lining was that then it meant that everybody had to eventually be involved. But that should have been the starting point.
It should have
This
been.
government, as they started, they went to some kind of a strategic planning, right? And my understanding, when I talk to people I know within cabinet, they said actually they were very surprised that it went so well, because despite the noise you are hearing by the DA in particular outside opposing this or the other, they didn't oppose that framework that was, in a sense, a foundation of that government as it started. They didn't oppose that. It was very smooth and so on. If anything, some of the DA members said, hey, looks like the opposition has been easy. Some of them said that. They said it to me on my face. It looks like the opposition has been easy, because when we see what the director generals came to present, we're actually quite surprised. Because, of course, they thought the whole thing was going to just be a mess. It's been a mess all around. But once they are inside and they are now presented with the facts of how government works, right, they themselves were surprised. But they seem to have then sort of set in that bubble, a honeymoon bubble, for months on months. They didn't even realize that, oh, by the way, we haven't figured out how we're going to disagree.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think that they have let their own constituency down. Right. Who they said, if we come into government, we're going to govern better and so on. How do you govern better when you cannot even have a budget? You know, it's crazy. So, unfortunately, if you look at whatever angle you look at, I think the GNU experiment has failed. Right. And it's pity that's called GNU in the context of the GNU of 1996, where Mandela tried to bring everybody together. These are two different animals.
Yeah,
this one was party political machination instead of a nation-building project. The GNU of Mandela was a nation-building project.
Yeah.
The NC won by overwhelming majority, and they thought, why do we leave out these guys? Let's bring them in so that we all build a new South Africa.
I don't think that's what they were thinking. No. I don't think they were trying to build a new South Africa.
Well, in 1996.
I'm talking about
now. No, then those ones, no, that's clear. This ones was, how do we survive? We've lost elections. How do we survive?
Yeah.
Just look at Botswana. What happened in Botswana? The population there didn't joke around with the ruling party that's been in power for five decades. They took them out. They had 3 seats.
Yeah.
3, not 3%, 3 seats.
Which sort of leads us towards the next time that the people have a say. It's going to be this time next year when we have the local government elections. Yeah. And obviously, we've had this period of a lot of inactivity and the fun and games around the government of national unity and so on. But it looks like the 4 major parties all have some version of trouble of their own. Right? Each one of them is having internal problems, and it's hard to work out who's having the biggest problem. Really, if you look at it, I can't see one cohesive of the big 4, because obviously we've got the ANC. If we can start there, the biggest parties they remain, but a lot of jockeying happening already. A lot of fun and games when it comes to the leadership thing. Rumors starting about. The perennial rumor about Ramaphosa getting ready to resign. Now it's seemed to be weaponized. Then there's a question of who takes over from him. So on. How do you read the ANC?
Look, the ANC is exactly as you would expect, and true to the trends that we have seen over the last 3 decades. Okay, very few ANC leaders have finished their term. Right, so they get to a point where the ANC itself is fed up with them and let them go, right? And we've seen a situation where a deputy will ascend, regardless of what the media says. I see that the Media 24 is running a big campaign about Mashatile and Musk and what he's going to be the president if ANC sticks to its tradition. He may not be the head of state if the ANC doesn't get another 40%. But for now, it looks like that's the holding pattern. Holding pattern is we're in there with enough to be able to influence who gets to govern. So Paul Mashatile is going to be there. I don't think the campaigns that I'm seeing are going to result in... I mean, if Zuma, with all his weaknesses, was able to ascend very nicely, he had 800 charges. Okay. We talk about Mashatile, who doesn't have one judge.
Hmm.
Zuma had 800 judges, and the ANC sat in a meeting and excused him and came with fanciful stuff that says, "Oh, it's not a prosecution, it's persecution."
Hmm.
And they even had a committee that was going to excuse him, led by Sisulu, Lindiwe Sisulu, right? Something called the Brains Trust. I don't know if you remember that.
Hmm.
This was 2009, where everybody thought this guy can't be president. He's got 800 charges for which is over which he's still running away. Right, after 20 years, he's still running away from those same charges. But he managed to become president with those charges over his head. Right. So if you think Paul Maseru is not going to be president, I'm not sure what you are comparing that to. So let's put that. However, that doesn't stop joking. There are people who are saying maybe Mbalula must be the president. Right? That's a serious issue. But of course, Mbalula is saying don't contest now. It's not yet time. We'll tell you when to compete and so on. Nobody in the ANC ever listens to that. Mm. The joking happens as soon as the president of the ANC is elected. The joking for the successor starts. Yeah. That's how ANC works, right? Because they're not going to campaign 3 days before the conference when you have been campaigning by incumbency, right? So Mbalula is an incumbent. He talks every day on television and radio. This exercise authority over branches, etc. In the eyes of those who don't like him, he's campaigning. And then he tells you, don't campaign. It doesn't work. The reality is the campaign is on. Yeah. Okay? The fact that people are saying, Ramaphosa will resign and what is part of campaigning. It's part of unsettling him. Remember, once you are on the second term as ANC president, you are a lame duck. Because people are looking to the next prince. And looking at you. You are on your way out. You can't hand out enough patronage to sustain anything. So you look at the next guy. So of course people are genuflecting in front of Mashatile. Those who understand that in the ANC terms, it's almost near impossible for a new person to come. Now, I think there were people who were saying, oh, maybe Patrice Motsepe. He told us on television that is not the case. I'm not saying believe him, but at least he told us that he's not interested.
Well, you'll be surprised to know I did a piece the other day where I said that I actually think that in the ANC, I welcome Mashatile becoming the next president for the simple reason that unlike Cyril, when he was ascending, where we trusted him, where he had a great level of trust, Mashatile is not going to enjoy that trust. From day one, everyone's going to be looking for under his bed every minute of the day. He's not going to be trusted for a minute. So he definitely, within South Africa, is going to go into that position with a big microscope following him wherever he goes.
Yeah. So you have politicians that you trust? Because I thought...
No, I'm saying that there's a danger. There's a danger of trusting politicians. Yeah. It's a danger.
Regardless of whether it's an ANC politician or a DA politician, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of like my advice to people would be never trust a politician, especially never trust the president, and always vote against the ruling party, whoever they are. You know what I mean? Just to...
but then they will have no government. If everybody took your advice, then there will be no government. The issue is, at some point, you got to make a decision of who's going to govern you.
Yes.
As a citizen, right? The ANC, the reason we're talking about the ANC and its succession, there's an assumption that they'll still be in charge. So people are thinking...
Certainly the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, right? So people are saying Mashatile is going to be the next president. But he may be the president of the ANC, may not necessarily be the president of the country, unless they keep at least above the water, which is above 40%, 45%, where they can still
put together the coalition.
Yes, still put together the coalition, right? I get a sense, and I hate to be a prophet of doom, but I get a sense that the country is fed up, but not fed up enough to completely be rid of the ANC.
Yeah. And I think what's helping them is onto the others, because it's one thing you having your problems, but it's another thing, I'll never forget this famous quote by a Springbok front row forward.
Yeah.
Who was a renowned strong scrummager, but a bit fat and lazy. and he was moaned for not running around the rugby field. And when he was asked why he was walking on the rugby field, he says, "Don't worry, 1 or 2 scrums and they're going to be walking with me." Sometimes it's also not necessarily just about the ANC, but it's also about who
the alternative.
The alternative.
Yeah.
So the DA is going into their elective conference, which has never been an elective conference as much as a managed
transition. Managed transition. Yeah.
And it's starting to look quite bleak for my friend Mr. Steenhuisen.
Well, I don't know what do you want us to be further in his black book, you and I, or
we might as well. He's not coming on the show anyway.
Look, the reality is, John Steenhuisen stuffed it up before the election of last year, right? By forming this so-called moonshot, which collapsed spectacularly. It's interesting that I've not had DA leaders assessing that as a disastrous approach to an election. In other words, let's have a coalition before we know who's going to be who in the zoo, before we know who's going to get the actual votes. But let's preempt them by having a coalition in advance. I'm not aware of such a thing anywhere in the world. I'm sorry, and I'm not a historian or anything like that. And if you know an example, please tell me, where people ahead of a vote pick who they're going to form a government with. And then that fell spectacularly along the way. So some of us said, well, it was badly named to say it's going to happen in the moon. So maybe that thing could only happen in the moon, not on Earth. Where here you need to say, the people have spoken. They have said that these are the people that you should be working with, not somebody with 1 seat or 2 seats. And now you have a situation now where some of those people who were in that moonshot were not even consulted when John Steenhuisen decided to change tack. They just woke up and the people have been suspecting that ANC and DA will have a grand coalition happened in their faces. When they themselves together, by the way, they made each other swear that they will never work with the ANC. Let's just remember that.
Yeah.
Right? Because John Steenhuisen has said, over my dead body will we work with the EFF, but please, can you also swear that you won't work with the ANC? But he was the first one to run, to get scraps, or should I call it scraps, of power from the ANC. And I agree completely with what Bheki was saying, that actually the DA has kept the ANC in power.
Sure.
That's really the summary of what they have done through the journey. So, do I care really about who's going to be the leader of the DA? Well, as an interest, as somebody who's interested in politics, I should just be curious. Right? It looks like Zille wants to come back as leader, although she has dismissed it. But I've seen this before, because you'll recall when she went back to be federal chair, people were saying, no, this cannot be, etc. And then she came and said, no, I'll be in my lane. I'll just be in my lane. What happened to the lane? The lanes have been blurred now. Who is the real leader of the DA? Let's be honest. Here is a person who, in fact, in the entire DA machinery, thinks that she is the only person who can lead Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is clear that it's a failure of developing second layer leadership. How long has Zille been in the DA? I can't keep track. She's now in her 70s and believes that there's not a single person in the entire Joburg in the DA who can be a mayor. Right? While people are excited, oh no, she'll clean the city and so on, they are also not addressing the fact that this means there is no succession planning in the DA.
Yeah.
If somebody who was a leader came back as a leader, another version of the leader, there's even a rumor that she wants to be even the leader over and above being a mayor. Right? It shows you that this is like some kind of a monarchy of some sort.
The way I read it is that something that I made quite a big deal of, and that is that the DA looks like it doesn't have the stomach. They got so comfortable in the Western Cape that they lost, especially in the northern part of the country in Gauteng. That thing really doesn't want to be open, does it?
Yeah.
That the DA just doesn't have the stomach for the fight in Gauteng.
Yeah.
And now they're almost in a position where they have to come and address the fight because the ANC is so bad up here. And the only solution that they could possibly see is
recycle
the biggest name the biggest name in their party. And I can understand how they get to that decision, and it might actually work as long as she has a very strong deputy that can come into the role. I don't see her be returning as the leader, but either way, I don't see it making.
Well, I think in a year's time, we will come back here, and hopefully you'll invite me again, right? We
might have that same bottle of water that we can't.
But I think they can give me one that I can open. But anyway, I think the issue is, I feel that it don't work, right? And I've got a number of reasons why I think it don't work. What they have done now, they have provoked the other parties, right, to put their best foot forward, right? And if those parties do that, let's say, for example, Action SA puts Mashaba, right? I'm not sure who the EFF would put, right? But they take the cream of their crop, right? It may well be something that the DA did not anticipate. They thought, oh, well, Tata Morero and now Masuku, who's just won elections, was going to be a walkover. So let's put Zille, and then she'll just stamp her authority. And because people are fed up of coalitions, they'll just automatically vote the DA. And that is a misreading of Gauteng, right? It's a misreading of the psyche of somebody who grew up in Soweto, who still remembers the gunshots of 1976, or somebody whose parents died in Sharpeville. Those people who last year would not bother to vote, by just Zille provoking them this way, right? They are going to come out of their holes and they're going to vote her away, right? So she could probably be like the ANC gets a 40%, and all the other 60 goes to other people, right? Who unfortunately
will never form a coalition with her.
Exactly. So it's my prediction. I'm not a prophet, but next year we'll know. Well, you can prove me wrong in a year, but I believe it don't work. Even if you have a deputy and whatever, because why? It's going to be even a worse narrative, because they're probably going to put a black deputy, isn't it? If they put a white deputy, it's going to be worse for them. If they put a black deputy, say, oh, a black person is only good enough in the DA to be number 2. Why can't you make them number 1? Let Zille be the deputy. She will probably die first before she deputizes anybody. So, good luck to the DA on that. I think that's not going to work. And the other parties still are keeping their cards closer to their chest in terms of who they're going to field to deal with the Zille monster.
Talk about the other parties. We touched on it briefly. Konto Wesizwe, they've had a bit of a rough 25, culminating in this crazy story about Duduzile Zuma Samvudla sending, basically recruiting young men to go and for training in Russia. She seemed to be quite clear as to what they were going to do.
Look, I think Konto Wesizwe is battling with just basics of a proper organization, right? We probably need a voice like that of people who are not necessarily all singing the praises of the ANC and what, right? But it looks like they are battling to keep it together, right? Look at how many resignations. I mean, even if you are a soccer club man, you can't have more than 5 coaches or 5 captains within 5 months. People will think, what the hell is going on, right? You need a level of stability. Even the worst political parties who battle with factionalism, like the ANC is battling factionalism. Imagine if the ANC changed Mbalula 5 times, what would have happened? It will look bizarre, but it will also send you a clear message that says there's no organization here, right? And those, as they leave the party, they begin to tell us fairy tales of what's going on, stuff that we can see, but they get confirmed by those who leave, because they no longer have the in a sense, they're no longer gagged from telling us what is happening, right? I don't know whether you know who's the latest person to leave. I think Lucky Montana has left. At some point, the chief whip was fired and hired and fired.
Right? Good old days, Van Rooyen. I feel sorry for
7 or 8 general secretaries. Van Rooyen, I mean.
Shame, you had the job for one day.
Yeah,
Not
I
even
think
a
I think he needs to write a book called Political 2 minutes Noodle. Because I mean, how do you explain such a thing? It's like he's cursed or something. But anyway, let alone Van Rooyen. Look at the track record. This thing is a year and a half or so. I think they're headed for the second year now, right? And we don't actually know who is the real Mkhonto Wesizwe. Can they kindly please stand up? Because how do you explain this now? As you while you are still comfortable with a narrative, there's no, it's a family business and what have you. You then have the daughter being told to step aside.
Yeah.
That's what I wish I could understand.
Yeah, and you get the feeling that they didn't quite understand somebody. Let's say it might just be her individually, but these are pretty heavy charges. It's serious stuff.
Yeah, how do you? Because also it's illegal. By the way, let's start there. And we're talking about somebody who's, as we speak, is in court on something else that's illegal, which was to to provoke the people and get them to riot and what have you. So I think they decided, look, this is becoming too hot to handle. We are now going to have a second case, and therefore the MK is going to be on the firing line. So just step aside for now until the temperature comes down. But I don't think, I don't doubt for a minute that she's still heavily involved in MK. She may not be heavily involved publicly, but it will be only foolhardy to think she would just walk away from what she sees as her inheritance, actually.
Yeah. And what do you see happening with their future support as we sit right now, with the chaos reigning, hard to see who can pull it together? What do you think? They clocked up nearly 15% nationally in the general election of last year. The by-elections seem to show them shedding some support.
Yeah, look, a South African voter doesn't like chaos. You may not believe it, but I can tell you now. All you have to do is to look at all the parties that were formed in the New South Africa. UDM, okay? It was a lovely story.
Yeah.
Black and white together, Rolf Meyer and Bantu together. New South Africa, okay? I think they've got two seats.
Yeah.
Right? From after, and I think they're approaching 25 years anniversary. All they have done is erode, right? PAC, Azapo, all of them, one seat, right? Remember, PAC was supposed to be a breakaway of some sort, right? COPE is a sadder story. Okay,
10% to none.
Yes, but remember all the what do you call it? All the fantastic, what miracle from. Remember, the COPE was launched in December. The elections were in April, right? And from 0 members to having 36 seats in parliament, 1.3 million votes. And everybody thought this is what we need, this is going to grow, etc. And it went south. They have 0 seats, right? So almost all of the parties that have sort of been a breakaway of the ANC of some kind starts good because people are saying, can't we just have an alternative, please? Right? And then they get comfortable in that being that budding alternative, and they start failing. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen in Mkhonto. I'm just saying the trends
are not good.
Unfortunately, are not good. So if they buck the trend, it's not impossible, because I said here before the elections, and I said, no, these guys are just going to be good in KZN, and the rest, and I was proved wrong, right? But the trends really bear me out to say that it doesn't look like the idea of a chip of the old block becoming the block itself has so far worked. It has failed on every turn.
And then, of course, EFF, they did look like they were backing the trend. They grew in every subsequent election. And then at the last election, they stumbled a bit and got rid of a lot of senior people, a lot of their main bigger names. But they've still got the absolute capture of
They've got the presence.
They've got the presence of Julius Malema.
Yeah. Look, they dropped by 1%.
Yeah.
The ANC dropped by
17.
17%. Okay. So if we were to compare horses with horses, to say, all right, this was electoral decline.
Yeah.
Who is the worst decline is the ANC. Right? So let's start there to say and I always argue with my friends about this, that you cannot have a one-party state.
No.
Right? And so the DA's success through its formation, I think, I don't remember when they were still a part of the National Party. Remember, by the way, DA was an alliance of all of those splinters, including the National Party.
No, well,
yes.
No, the National Party joined the ANC, but
No,
the DA was a Democratic Party.
Yes, but when they reformed, there are people who went to the ANC, but some went to the DA.
Yeah.
Right? So they've got some DNA of the NP in them, unfortunately. Right? But if we are to just be simple, we'll say they are more of a white party than a black party.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So, but you still need them because they are representing a part of a population. You may not like the population they represent or their politics, but you can't argue that they shouldn't exist. Same with the EFF, right? People are saying, no, socialism. And so when I talk, people just, I don't care about the ideological labels. I just tell you what I think could work, right? But there are people who believe what the EFF's 7 pillars are about. There are people who believe that you must take away the land. People who believe you must take away the banks. There are people who believe that. And they found a home in the EFF. Same with IFP. There are people who believe in the Zulu nationalism or whatever that the IFP has represented over the years. That's what makes the rainbow that we are talking about. Right? So I'm saying, without advocating for any particular one, you still need a multi-party democracy.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of whether the EFF will survive, or rather will move from the 9 into a bigger bracket, that's always a possibility, right? Because remember who ate the breakfast of EFF.
Yeah.
We've just talked about it now. I was saying these people are chaotic. It's not going to work. So the people who are now there, what home are they going to go back to?
Yeah, and they've still got an overall in the cupboard.
Yeah, some of them may go back to the EFF.
Yeah.
Because it's not far-fetched to think this decline or this decline, despite that it was 1%, right, had to do with an MK that was not anticipated. By December, before the election, it didn't exist. Right? So all the polls, if you remember the polls, or the polls that were released around February, put the EFF at 15%. So all of that prediction went to the dogs.
Just a last question, and that is that we've seen a lot of problems, especially we mentioned Ekurhuleni in these commissions.
Yes.
Will there be a political price to pay, do you think? For example, there it's a straight coalition between the ANC and the EFF in Ekurhuleni.
Yeah.
Patriotic Alliance in coalition with the ANC and EFF in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Do you think the parties themselves will pay a price or not? Not overly. We don't really do that in South Africa.
I've really ceased to be what I can call politically consequential. What am I talking about? 2009, Zuma has 800 charges. In fact, I think if you look at the election before, they still did very well, despite the Zuma effect. Right? But you could also say part of why the ANC lost metros in 2016 and in 2021 was because people were beginning to be fed up. Right? And the trend continued, despite predictions that says, oh, no, it's just local government elections. Oh, it was a very cold morning. That's why people didn't go. And then the ANC sort of ignored that trend and look at what has happened. And now the trend is solidified in that you now have, this is the third election where the ANC was losing and losing and losing. Right? So will there be political consequences? Hopefully, yes. Because we are tired of just simply recycling the same people for 30 years with no consequence, right? But it's all up to you and me in that booth, right? And people must understand they've got agency and they need to exercise the agency the same way that the Botswana exercise agency there, despite those people having been there for 5 decades. It means that they've got a big loyalty base.
Yeah.
Now, the loyalty base is not always going to come to your rescue.
Yeah.
And if the ANC just understood that and not behave like they won elections, they probably could, sort of rescue themselves from the 40% and maybe go back to being the majority party.
Well, JJ Tabane, thank you so much for coming in. It's been fantastic catching up with you, and thank you for coming and,
thank you, Mike,
and doing this. To everybody that watched us today, I hope that you enjoyed it. Subscribe to The State of the Nation, support Pace Car Rental. What else can I tell you? We're ending the year off on a strong note here. I hope you've enjoyed the content. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.